Today to discuss something that we're all familiar with, so it's not specific to my industry. It's something that's been around for as long as we can determine, going back to the time of the ancient Egyptians. Something that's played such a central role in medieval culture that it was acceptable to be used as a form of currency to pay taxes and settle debts. And it's something that continues to evolve and develop on an almost daily basis today. Talking about the third most widely consumed beverage worldwide, trailing only behind water and tea. The answer, of course, is beer. Now, many of us are familiar with beer because of our familiarity with it to make a bad joke into a funny one, turn a bad dancer into a good one, and a source of liquid courage for all to perform karaoke without the slightest hesitation. However, there is an entire sect of beer makers and beer drinkers that is very cultured and places an emphasis on the taste and the aroma of what you're drinking, and less of a focus on its ability to impair cognitive function. That movement's known as the craft beer experience. So what is craft beer? The best definition that I've seen in the years that I've been learning about craft beer and experiencing craft beer comes from ratebeer.com, which is actually a pretty reputable website promoting the craft beer culture. According to Rate Beer, craft beer is primarily characterized by the brewer's attention to recipes and ingredients that maximize the flavor, appearance, and aroma of the beer. The craft brewer is almost personally oversees the whole process from the beginning to the end, from selecting the ingredients, the recipe, to when it's finalized. They usually monitor quality, taste, and control throughout the whole process. Pretty cool job, actually. You need to just continue to taste your product as you go along. Usually, it requires a lot of skill and training to be a craft brewer. The best brewers have a lot of experience under their belt. It also requires a lot of creativity because it's not a simple Miller Lite, Bud Light type of recipe that's produced for mass consumption. Usually very specific to purpose to the beer, and it requires a lot of out-of-the-box thinking. They're usually made with the best ingredients available to the brewers, and that includes anything from the usual beer ingredients as hops and wheat, but can range to blueberries, orange peels, honey, coffee beans, chili peppers, flower petals. I've had a few craft beers that have been made with flower petals. Surprisingly refreshing and nice taste, smooth taste going down. Most craft beer drinkers have a lot going on in their head when they drink a craft beer. It's a process that's been coined in the community as stop, think, and drink. What that means is you're supposed to take notice of its appearance, you're supposed to smell the beer, its aroma, the flavor, obviously, and then a quality known as the mouthfeel. It sounds a little self-explanatory. It is how it feels in your mouth, but what that means is the beer heavy? Is it light? Is it crisp? Is it smooth? Is it smoky? Is it watery? Craft beer is best enjoyed in specified glassware. Glassware for optimal smelling and taste varies based on the type of beer that you're drinking. I guess it could be similar to some wine or scotches and brandies. For example, ales and porters are best served in a traditional pint glass, which I'm sure everyone's familiar with, and we saw last night at Top Dog. The lambic variety is best enjoyed in what's known as a flute glass, which is like a long, thin cylinder glass. It's almost like what you would drink champagne out of at a wedding. And then barley wines, for example, would be placed in a snifter. That's usually what brandy drinkers have. It's like almost the goblet-looking thing, but it closes up a little more up top because it concentrates the aroma of the beer through that smaller opening. Many craft beer enthusiasts take it a step further and pair their beer with food. That's usually my approach. I like to mix food and my beer. The nice thing about tastings with craft beer and food, as opposed to with wine, is there's no really set rules for mixing beer with food. It's all about individual taste, what you enjoy, what works for you and what doesn't. Whereas wine, it's usually white wine with chicken and fish, red wine with red meat. Not really the case with craft beer. One of my favorite combinations is a nice bitter hoppy IPA with a blue cheeseburger. It goes awesome together if you have a chance to try it. Actually, if I gave this talk yesterday, it would have been perfect because we were going to go right over to Top Dog. In terms of styles and varieties, there's a million of them. Too many for me to go over in this talk right now, but I'll give you some of my favorites. For me personally, they vary usually on the seasons. During the summer months when the temperature is warm, I like that nice, cool, crisp, hoppy, bitter IPA beer. During the fall, a few things taste better than a pumpkin beer. That's usually the best season to get them. Winter calls for heavy stouts and porters. And in the spring, I prefer sour beers, traditionally referred to as lambics or gouzes. They're really yeasty. You have to get used to that taste, actually. Sometimes it settles on the bottom, but if you keep it moving while you're drinking it, it's actually really very nice. So now that I've given you the basics, I can tell you a few places that are good in the area, not just here, but for those of us in New Jersey and North Jersey. Obviously, Top Dog actually had a pretty decent selection last night of craft beer on tap. For you Philadelphia folks, there's Monk's Cafe. Jeff might enjoy that. There's Rattle and Hum in New York City, the Ginger Man in New York City, the Growler Bar in downtown New York, which is quickly becoming one of my favorite places. They pretty much only have American craft beers on tap, but the owner and the bartender that are usually there are very knowledgeable. They'll go into all the varieties with you, tell you where they came from. Cloverleaf Tavern in Caldwell, which is a really good place. Andy's Corner in Pagoda, and then Stuff Your Face in New Brunswick actually has a pretty good selection too. So with that, I'll say cheers.